All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Kathy Almy, CEO of Almy Education, and I've got Arlene Vignon Dubiel with me. She's waving. She's going to be doing part of the presentation today. I'm gonna start. She's going to do this middle chunk, and then I'll close us out. So we've got basically Coreqs are sweeping the nation. They have been for a couple of years, and they've really hit momentum. And I would say without question, this is the thing that I get the most questions about, because my background, some of you I know, some of you are newer to me, but my background is math faculty. I still teach part-time, but I was tenured faculty for a very long time at a community college. And I have a lot of background in redesign and helping schools make their developmental math work. And there's been all different kinds of redesigns that have happened over the years. And there's always like something that seems like it's like the fad or the thing of the day. And some of these come and go and some of them stay. Absolutely, I don't think Coreqs is a fad. And I absolutely do think it is around to stay because it has the data to support it. And there's laws that have been coming with it because there is so much data. So we're going to look a little bit at that. I'm going to overview some things, and then we're going to share with you some things that we're going to be doing in the near future to help schools. All right, so hopefully that's flipping. All right, so first thing is let's define it, because not everybody, Coreqs are almost becoming like pathways and modules. Everybody uses the word, nobody uses it the same way. And we can get assuming things and then we're not on the same page. So that's never a good thing to do. So co-requisite remediation is also called co-requisite support. The word remediation often is considered negatively connotated. Same way with developmental. There's all kinds of groups and schools and things that are getting away from even using those words. But it's the idea that you have a college level course and you join another course with it that is usually 1 to 2 credit hours. It might be more than that in terms of contact hours. It might be, you might have 1 credit hour, but 2 contact hours. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. There's so much in the way of logistics. And there's so many options for how to do this. And you don't only have to co-req with math. There are other areas that are looking at co-req, sometimes a technical program, sometimes in chemistry. I've heard other schools doing this, but my daughter, when she started her freshman year, she's a engineering major at Southern Illinois University, and they had a co-req for Calc 2, and it was only for engineering students. So it was only people that could enroll in it. They knew that Calc 2 was their nemesis, and anybody who's a math teacher here, you know Calc 2 is a beast, and so they had set that up to help with success. My daughter, like she was like, Mom, I don't know if I should take it. I'm like, take it. Oh my gosh, you're going to get more help. Go for it. And it was great. She absolutely loved it. And it was a really good experience for her. So that's the other thing too about Coreqs. It's not only students that qualify for them that like them. You will have other times where these students will be like, hey, can I join that? Because you get more help. Now, granted, that help doesn't come for free, but the cost is minimal compared to another semester and another book for a class. Okay, so let me get all my sorted stuff. Okay, now I can see. All right, I'm good now. Okay, so the idea of a co-requisite is also that we're getting away from so many prerequisites. And that's the way that developmental education has been built since the 70s. It's just this idea of, you take a course and you get all those skills, and then you're allowed to take the college level course. There's a move away from that. And I don't think that all prerequisite courses are going to disappear, but the sequence that, especially if you're math faculty, you're probably very familiar with the pre-algebra, beginning algebra, intermediate algebra sequence, that is disappearing quickly across the country. And actually, what I think is interesting is the legislation that was in California, which the bill is known as AB 705. I think that's Assembly Bill 705, which if there's any math faculty from California, they've heard of it. That bill That's what Illinois, our legislation was modeled off of. There's other states that have also modeled it modeled their requirements off of it. It's this whole thing. It says you must maximize the probability of a student completing a math and their English a college credit in the first 2 semesters of them starting the college. So that language is getting used in several places. And so what it comes down to is they're trying to get students to get their college math and English credit done first year. And to do that, you can't have pre-beginning and intermediate algebra. That you can't make all that happen, especially in some states like ours where intermediate algebra in Illinois is not considered college level. It's considered developmental. Okay, so what are they not? So this is the thing that we need to go for, because this is something as a math faculty member, I definitely used to have a connotation in my head, like what co-requisites are. And it wasn't that it's wrong, but it's not the optimal way to do it. And but what I was thinking is often what a lot of times faculty think they are. It is not the gluing together of a bunch of courses. So when you first start thinking about co-requisites, you think about like a college algebra co-requisite. You're like, am I going to glue beginning and intermediate to it? And how many credit hours is that going to be? And it's like, it's a whole different paradigm. It's not built on that at all. Okay. So it's a different way of putting together courses. The model is just in time, not just in case. So the whole idea of traditional developmental math is a just in case model. Just in case you haven't seen this or don't remember it, we want to make sure we give you all the possible skills you could ever need in the world to go into any field that might require math. The way our traditional sequence was set up with the intention of people going to calculus. Vast majority of students starting in developmental, not headed towards calculus. Okay, so we're making them go through all these courses. They don't need all of them. Thankfully, that has really changed. I mean, I think when I first started working in reform and how things are now, I'm not saying I did that. I'm just saying there's been like change all over the place. There's just really been a change in mindset. That intermediate algebra is not the be all end all, and we don't have to have it for everything, which is great because it's a hard course for students to get through. But that was the model forever. Co-requisite is the idea of giving the students just what they need at that time. Okay, so let's look at an example of like what a statistics co-requisite would be. So like I teach statistics all the time. I love it. It's one of my favorite courses to teach. Okay, it is a non-STEM course. It does not heavily require a strong algebra background. If you teach stats, you know they're not going to factor in statistics. We're not going to add rational expressions. They don't have to be able to do any of that stuff. Okay, what they have to be able to do is use order of operations and read and be ready to be a college student. That's the big thing. They have to be ready to be a college student. Okay, so what a co-requisite could look like is you have your 3 credits. Some of you may have a 4-credit statistics course, and then you have an additional hour or 2 that the students would have of their co-requisite support course that they would also go to each week. And it can have a grade or be pass-fail. It could be the same teacher or a different teacher. It can be on the same day. It can be on different days. There's a lot of choices to make in how you do it and how many hours it counts for and when you offer it. And just there's a lot to it. So that's why I'm not going to be able to explain everything in the world about Coreqs to you today. We're going to tell you the big ideas and what we put together because there is so much to this. That's just the reality of it. So how would this look in terms of the math? So if you're a math person and you're like, but what, like, this is one thing I get asked a lot of times from math teachers. What do you actually do in the Coreqs section? Okay, so let's say you're teaching in statistics, you're teaching correlation and regression. One of the things that when you're doing that is you're working with slope-intercept form. And we're not working with the baby ones that we did in algebra class, like y equals 3x plus 4. They're much more involved in terms of the slope and the y-intercept. They're much uglier. And we also expect them to be able to interpret them and make sense of what the slope is as a rate of change in a real life context, and the y-intercept, does it even make sense in this real life context? Those are the kinds of things we do. So in your co-requisite support course, you could be doing things like, hey, let's work a little bit more with slope intercept, because that's something that maybe some people were having trouble with. And you might do more examples of what they were doing in the class. So like more time with those interpreting slope and interpreting y-intercept in a context. You might also back down and work some more on the skills if there's something that's lower than that they need to be able to do other things, like, depending on how you're doing graphing. Do they need a refresher on graphing? So it's a much more fluid process, and again, just in time. It's the idea of we are adapting to where our class is and giving them what they need at that time. Okay, so implementation, the devil is in the details. And this is the reality of it, okay? So I'm gonna, and if you're a state legislator, which I doubt we have on the Zoom today, but a lot of times policy people and bureaucrats and college presidents, love them, okay? But a lot of times they're gonna be like, go implement Coreqs, make it happen. And it's just, because I hear this all the time, we're just told to make it happen because they work. Somebody went to a conference and they found out they work. And the question is it really that simple? No, it's not. There's a whole lot to it. And so like in Illinois, we have a law and all these colleges are going to be implementing co-requisites and other reforms over the next couple of years. Every single one of those is going to look different because there's so much nuance in terms of how many staff you have, how many students you have, what is the makeup of your students? Are they typically headed towards STEM or non-STEM? What's the sequence you offer? It's just, they all are very different looking, even though it's all under this umbrella of co-requisite, okay? So the thing is there are so many decisions to make, and there is no one right decision. So for math people, you have to resist that urge that there's the one right answer, because there isn't the one right answer. There's lots of right answers. And so what you will have to be committed to is you're going to have to put a stake in the ground at some point and say, this is what we're going to try, and then realize you're going to have to tweak it. It is an iterative process. Redesign always is. Coreqs really is, because it's so heavy on logistics. So you're going to have to play with things and be flexible. Isn't that what we learned from the pandemic? We learned how to be flexible. We're going to have to bend and not get too excited, like, hey, we figured it out for fall. It may look totally different in the spring or very little different. It really depends. Okay. But it takes a while. So one thing is, I do get asked this regularly. Why are they making us do this? Okay. Why are they making us do Coreqs, and why now? Okay. So one of the big things, I just actually went to basically a 2-day conference on Coreqs last week, which was awesome. And just watching all different schools, how they were implementing them in math and English. And again, holy cow, they're all so different. But one of the things that everybody who is working on Coreqs really emphasizes is something called throughput. So I went and found this graphic, which I think is just like, oh, this is beautiful. Now we can just see it. Okay, so I really like this from Community College of Denver. So you can see the visualization that they have on it. The traditional developmental sequence is on top. And it's the idea, it doesn't matter what the numbers of the course is, but what I want you to see is the traditional sequence requires students to not only pass multiple courses, but enroll in the next course. And we have a chance to lose students at both of those junctures. Even the ones that pass don't always sign up for the next thing. So we just lose and lose and lose students. And if you look at this, if they start with 100, at the end, they're saying, this is 5 semesters to complete. So this is your traditional pre-beginning intermediate algebra, 3 semesters of developmental before college level. But that doesn't mean that they're going to get through it in 3. And they say, on average, if they start with 100, 4 of them will complete. Now that's different data for every college, but they all have this same flavor. We really lose students as we go. The bottom is the co-requisite model. And so the idea is one class, then you're taking care of the developmental aspect of it at the same time as the college level. So they don't have to sign up for another semester and another course and all of that. It's one class. And then, I guess it's 2 classes, but it's in the same semester. Although some schools do make it one big combined class. That's something you can do too. Lots of options. But what I want you to see is they say if they start with 100 in theirs, like 54 will complete the college level course. So the one thing that often happens and that math faculty need to be aware of so that they're not, worried of what's going on. Often your internal course pass rates are going to go down. So maybe before you might have had like 60, if you had 100 start, maybe 60 would pass. And maybe now you only have 54. But they really emphasize, anybody that's working on this on a large scale, do not look at individual course rates, because that doesn't matter. I mean, if you had 70% in 3 courses in a row, 0.7 times 0.7 times 0.7, where's my calculator? What are you going to have for you're going to have 34% get through. Okay. So it doesn't even matter if you have great pass rates. If you have multiple times they have to do this, you're not going to keep a lot of students. You're going to have more students get through and therefore complete under the Coreq model. And the idea of anymore with not developmental math, with math and college in general, it's not just getting them in the door, it's getting them out with something they can use. So it's not just about access, it's also about success. So this is what we're looking at. And this is what, college presidents will go to a meeting, they come back and be like, obviously we're going to get rid of our sequence. Why would we do anything else? Remember that thing I said, the devil's in the details. So they have absolutely shown increased completion, increased retention. And here's a biggie. When you disaggregate the data and you start drilling down into looking at how students do if you categorize them by socioeconomic class, by race, by gender, you still see really good results. That isn't always the case with other reforms. Sometimes if you just look at the whole, the big high level outcomes of some reforms, they look great, but if you drill down, it's really only working for certain students. The great thing about Coreqs is they work for a lot of students. And so this is actually a way to improve equity. So, and especially the way that our country, the changes we've made in the last year, that's why you're seeing it even become a bigger issue than it already was. Coreqs were already all over the place. Now there are colleges and states all over that are like, we can't. And some of them almost find it, that some people have said it's almost immoral or unethical to offer a program that they know has such a low chance of success if there's another alternative that has a higher chance of success. So that's why you're seeing them so much. And I do believe they can be a great thing. However, are they a magic bullet? No, there is no such thing. Okay. So especially for the math faculty, there's a big difference when you do a Coreq with a stats class versus a Coreq with a college algebra class, night and day. Okay. Doesn't mean they can't both work, but you have to take into account very different aspects, because one requires a lot of prerequisite knowledge and the other one doesn't. Okay. So you're going to have some students that are too low for a co-requisite, or maybe they just don't want to take that much math in one semester. One college I know that does a co-requisite college algebra, it's 4 credits for college algebra and 3 credits for the co-req. They got 7 credits of math. I mean, geez, that's more than half their load at most of them. So not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody wants to pay for that. And it just might be too much content. So I do believe, I'm going to go out on a limb, I do believe there's a place for developmental math, but I do believe that it can be much, much, much smaller. And there are a whole lot of students who can start in Coreqs. And the interventions we need below that can be much smaller than they are now. And just for a certain population of students. Now, the question is, who are they at your school? It depends. Where do you draw the line? So like Kristen, I'm working with her college, Shawnee College, Shawnee Community College. And that's one of the decisions that we're going to have to look at is like, where do we draw the line on who's allowed into the Coreq stats class and who isn't? How low do you go? And some of that is you're playing guess and check. You try and you see what happens, and then you try again. So sometimes faculty get nervous about this because they're like, what if we put them in a course that's too hard? What if we misplace them? The thing you need to remember is the current system has a strong chance of misplacement as it is. This is something I've read a lot of research on. We often misplace students in our current, just using like a placement test and the traditional sequence. And the outcomes are awful. if you misplace a student and they don't do well, or let's say they are placed correctly, but they don't do well in a course, and maybe they could have done better in like a co-rec course. There are students that will take a failure in math as a symbol of a failure of themselves. And there are people, and they don't do that with every course, but we special in math. That's English, but they love us, and that's what happens. There are students who will just leave college altogether because they can't get through their math class. So yes, could there be errors the other way, that we have students that are too high? Yes, that's possible, but I think what we've seen is that those errors are less disastrous than the other way around. So you're going to have errors no matter what. We're trying to minimize them. So stats people, type 1 and type 2 errors, but they always exist. We're just trying to minimize them. Okay, so what is involved to build them? So that's what we're going to get into now. And I'm going to, Arlene, I'll turn this over to you in just a second. So a lot. That's the main thing. What does it take? So here are some of the things that you have to think about. There's so much with logistics. Okay, so how many credit hours is it? And is it the same day? Is it a different day? Who's teaching it? Blah, blah, blah. So all scheduling, you have to think about that. What's the math content you're going to cover? What's the student success content you're going to cover? Because that's huge. A lot of these students need a lot of help with that, more so than the math. That's very common. You have to figure out grading. Like, what happens if they fail the co-rec course, pass the regular class? Are you going to give them the credit? I would, but you have to have your system set up that allows that to happen. So you're going to do pass fail on the co-rec. How does all that work? You can do a letter grade. A lot of people do in the co-rec, but you got to think that through. What happens if they stop coming to one and they only come to the other? Now what? Now what do we do? So you got all this to think about. And then if you want to, have the idea like we're going to test one thing and see if it works, and we're going to test another thing, you can't. There's a lot of variables, and you're going to have to test a lot of them at the same time. And so the issue is going to be, you're going to have a lot of confounding of variables. You're not going to necessarily know all the time what is contributing to success or not. So you're going to have to tweak. And again, you might not nail down the thing that is not working right off the bat. It might take a year or two to tweak it and get it to where you want. Okay. So what I founded my company on is the idea of faculty working with faculty. I think that faculty bring a lot of expertise, and when they are the ones that have been in the classroom doing this, and they are often a part of the decision-making process of how these are built, they can be Coreqs can be quite successful. I have gobs of experience with redesign and all different kinds of initiatives, emporiums, pathways, modularization, contextualization, compressed, you name it, flipped classrooms. I've done all that stuff, but I have not taught a co-rec yet. Now, I've built co-recs with other schools and they worked, but I have not taught them myself. And I don't believe in doing something that I don't have personal experience with. So we went and found people who are faculty who have done this at scale and know a lot about it. Okay. And so what we asked them to do, so Arlene and I, we worked with these two people. She'll tell you more about them. But the main thing I want you to know what we did is, I know there's so much to them because I've helped schools build co-recs before. I wanted to know, like, what is every possible decision like these people have to make, and what's the order that they have to make it. So we mapped all this out, and then they chunked it and built a course and a way to teach people how to do this, and in a successful way. So I'm going to turn it to Arlene, and just tell me, just say click or whatever, and I'll go to the next one.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Kathy. All right, so our solution to help you implement Coreqs at your own institution, we called it Corequisite Solutions. So it's going to be 6 modules, and it's really designed for administrators, instructional planners, instructors, and any other stakeholders who play a role in planning and implementing Corequisites. So, and as Kathy said, we found 2 experts who have been through this. Go ahead and next slide. So we have Rob Eby and Jennifer Ackerman. So Rob is a professor of mathematics at Blinn College, and he was instrumental in designing from the get-go Corequisites when Texas implemented their law or passed their law in 2017. He got his college to start this, and so he's been instrumental in that. Jennifer is a professor of mathematics at Jefferson Community and Technical College in Kentucky, and she has taught and designed several different co-requisite courses just over the course of the time that she's been teaching. The two of them really, they've kind of talked about, when I was talking with them, they talk about what works, what doesn't work, and some of the surprises that they discovered along the way that they had to work through. And really what they want to do is share that knowledge and expertise with you so that your ability to implement Coreqs can be successful from the start.
I
So
want to mention one thing. Some of you may be a member of AMATIC, so our national two-year college association. Both Rob and Jennifer are active members of AMATIC and have done different things with like training. They do presentations and so like AMATIC has a lot of people. It's a great organization. Our state organizations are awesome too. And they're a great place to find faculty who are doing innovative things and can share and help. So I just wanted you to know that if you're going to the AMATIC conference this fall, I'm guessing they'll both be there. So you can potentially check them out there.
Yeah.
All right, Arlene, I'm going to click it. I swear I'm clicking it. Okay, there we go.
All right.
Oh, it went back.
There we go. So Rob and Jennifer have designed, like I said, a 6-module course. And each module, they kind of build on each other, but not completely. So it's possible for you just to engage in one or two that are most pertinent to you. And it really depends on what your role is, as well as where you are within the planning process. So, and really these are designed to help you make those necessary decisions so that Coreqs can be successful. So the way that each session works, there will be a beginning introductory video and a request for some information so that they can then hone the live session to fit what you need. The live sessions are going to be every Thursday in July. And so the very first one is July 1st, and there are 5 Thursdays in July. So there's going to be 5 sessions. I'll talk about the last one in a minute. All right. And each one, if you want to put it on your calendar, just so you know, they are every Thursday and they are at 2 o'clock Central. So 3 o'clock Eastern, noon Pacific. So it's, like I said, every Thursday. So go ahead, next slide. So the very first session is on logistics. So as Kathy mentioned, there are a lot of logistical decisions that have to be made. And these include things like how many credit hours are going to be for the co-requisite? What are the course numbers? What kinds of institutional supports do you need? What about registration for students, advising? How does this impact financial aid? And thinking through all of these institution level decisions. So this really is intended for administrators and planning committees and really for the early stages of planning. Go ahead, next slide. So the next week is going to be on scheduling. And this is where we're looking at a little bit more of department level decisions. So you're looking at how you're going to schedule these courses, how you're going to fill them with students. Are you going to pair particular sections, or are you going to allow a little bit of freedom, so that they are in a different support course, given the one credit bearing course, so how are you going to do that? Who's going to actually teach these courses? Do you want the same teachers for both courses, or are you going to allow a little bit of freedom there? So there's, and as Kathy said, every decision is a little bit different. It really depends upon your institution, your faculty. So the intended audience here are, again, some administrators, but anyone who would be involved in planning and particularly department level people, so department faculty. All right. So next slide. So the next one, the third session, is on content. So here's where we get a little bit into the nitty-gritty of what are the learning outcomes. How will the credit bearing and the support courses work together in order to best support students? What kinds of course policies are you going to have? The intended audience here are more for instructors, but also some planners and department level people who are going to be making sure that everybody's talking to each other and everything's working well. So, go ahead, next one. All right. The fourth session is on grading and assessment. So for this session, now that you know what the learning outcomes are, we're looking at how are those outcomes being achieved? How will you know that those outcomes, that those objectives have been achieved? So we're looking at evidence of learning. We're looking at, do the courses have final grades? Do they have final exams? How are you going to work with that? As Kathy mentioned, is it possible to pass the credit-bearing course and fail the support course? If so, what happens to the students? So this is really intended for both instructors and administrators, because you're looking at, grading and assessment within the course, but also how does that work on the institutional level with, the grades, and how that works in the grade book, and how does that look for students? All right, so next slide. The 5th session, which is on July 29th, is really intended for anyone who works directly with students. This one's a little bit of a different kind of session. So if you think about these students, the transition to college can be a real challenge, particularly for those students for whom co-requisite skills are needed. So really, you got to think about what kinds of skills students need to be successful in college. And that's why this session has been designed, this essential skills. So we're thinking about things like, student soft skills like organization, time management, how to deal with the learning management system, helping students to develop growth mindsets and resilience. Okay, yeah, you failed that test. It's okay. You can work on the next one. Here's some things that we can do to make sure that you pass the next one. And make sure that they help them with positive mental attitudes, especially when dealing with stress and anxiety. So really, this session is intended for anyone who works directly with students, because the bottom line is we want our students to be successful. And it's not always the math content that's the challenge, but the expectations that we have at the college level. So, all right, next slide. So the last session is a Q&A wrap-up session. This one will be scheduled for a later date. So it's going to be scheduled sometime in August or September. And really after the first 2 sessions, that's when we're going to decide when do we want to have this wrap-up session. So the idea with this wrap-up is you're going to be going back to your institutions. This is happening all through July. So you probably won't see anybody that you work with until August and September. So you can go back to campus, start talking with people, figuring out, you're probably going to start planning, and you're going to run into things that, we hadn't thought about that one. You might need some additional information, some additional support. And Rob and Jennifer have firsthand experience designing and implementing these classes. And so we've scheduled this Q&A session that's really designed. It's just, what kinds of things do you need now that you're starting to think about this in a little more detail? So, all right, next slide. So, and really,
sorry. There we go.
Fine. Yep. No, this is just my wrap up, because again, this is our Corequisite Solutions, and it is happening every Thursday in July, and then we'll have a wrap up. And again, this is really, we went to the experts, and they want to help you make the decisions and think through all of those decisions that are going to work for your institution and for your students. So I'll turn it back over to Kathy.
All right. So if you're wondering how to get access to this, I want to explain the process to do that. And actually, hang on, there we go. Okay. So we have a membership, and any faculty that are in that, so anybody that's in your STEM, this comes with your membership. So you have this, and with the other things you already have, and you can attend the course. It has live aspects, it has recorded aspects, but even the live will get recorded. So it's available to you if you have membership. If you don't have that, you can purchase that. So if you're not a member, we're providing this to anybody just if you get an annual membership. And really $199 is we actually we would provide standalone courses like this outside of our membership, and they would be $199, $299, and sometimes more. So this is, yes, you pay for this course, but you also get a full year inside your STEM. So you're going to get any other courses we have, all the other training that we've done, which we had all kinds of training last year on teaching online effectively, asynchronous and synchronous. We're going to have a live training series this fall on how to teach students to analyze data. So we regularly have live training in there. We also have resources, all kinds of ready to use things that come with it. So yes, you're getting the course, but you're also getting all these other things that we put together to help teachers and help faculty make these courses work. We are moving away from an individual model. It's not, I mean, we tried this. It's nice that you have teachers that will, that like, hey, I want to get some new skills, or I want to learn something, or, I'd like more help with whatever topic, and they come and join us. That's great. But what we have really moved towards in this year is helping schools move the needle and really make redesigns work. You can't do that with just one person in your department working on it. So we are moving towards institutional purchases where we have, because we want, there's a reason for that. So the idea, I'll give you this website in just a second, so I'll come back to that. The idea is, when we do it with institutional, you're not just going to get the membership, but you will also get consulting hours with people like me, with Rob, with Jennifer, with other people that I contract that are experts in the space, so that you can actually like meet like this and say, okay, so we're trying this right now and they're not showing up. What do we do? So you're going to have access to people that can work with you specifically for your school. So the idea is get a department into the membership, or at least some of the department, not necessarily all of it, but some of it, and get them working together and get support that they need. Okay, so the website, if you're interested in signing up for just an individual of your STEM, I'll put that in the chat. So that's available just, for individual instructors. And if you are an individual or you're considering getting this, we're still going to honor your membership. We're not kicking you out or anything like that. It's just that we're moving towards focusing more on trying to get groups of faculty, because we learned something last year. We learned a lot of things with the pandemic, but we did a lot of training for faculty on moving their classrooms online and teaching in different ways than they had been doing before, and assessing in different ways, and all kinds of things. And we had several times where we had whole departments, or like a very large number of people in a department that went through training together. And what we heard consistently was they continued to have the conversations afterward, because they'd all had the same basis of training, and they talked about it, and change continued to occur. If you just have one person going through it, the only thing that's going to happen is maybe that one person's class is going to benefit from it, but you're not going to see anything really earth-shattering at the institution. And we're trying to make bigger impact. That's the goal. So again, if you have individual, you can keep it. We're not getting rid of you. We're grandfathering everybody in that has that, but we're just moving towards a different model down the road. Okay, so if you are interested in potentially, like you want more information on the institutional package and the consulting hours and all of that, email me, kalme@almeeducation.com. What we do is we look at how large your department is and your IPEDS count of your students, because your head count of your students and how large your department is, that affects like how much consulting will you need. Larger departments need more support to do this. If you're in a smaller department, we can get through these things so much more quickly, and it just doesn't take as long to do things. So before we hop off here, because we actually are, that was what we're trying to share with you today. So we try to give you the ideas of what is involved with Coreqs. The main thing is we're not trying to do a bait and switch. I couldn't in an hour teach you everything about Coreqs. It's not even possible. It would take a full day of like nonstop sessions all around the clock to really learn. Like you could do like an 8-hour day just on learning how to do Coreqs. There's just so much to it. So that's why I wanted to find people who could do this, but also we wanted to have it in a way that people can learn it that is based on what we know, instructional techniques that work. So instead of having people watch hour-long recorded lectures, which nobody wants to do, we're having them do at the beginning of the week, you watch like a 10 to 15 minute long video about some aspect like of logistics. And then Rob and Jennifer have a form they want you to fill out. Like, what are the specific things you have questions about that you needed? They're going to use that information to build out the live session that they do with you at the end of the week. And they will teach you more things, but they are also going to be tailoring it to the feedback they get. What do you need to know more about? So we're trying this to be a really a more of a hybrid experience, a flipped model, and give people specifically what they need and not just a pat, just watch it and well, then the magic happens, because we know that's not how it works. It does not. So any questions that you guys have, and you can unmute if you just want to talk instead of type. Does anyone have questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
And I guess my question is, can I forward this on to my admin? Because I'm going on vacation for the next 2 weeks and would not be able to attend the first of those sessions, but I'm not sure where we are in this process.
Oh, absolutely. Like we're going to, you're going to, everybody who signed up for it, because a lot of times people sign up for our webinars and they watch the recordings because they can't necessarily make the live session. So what we do is we always follow up with an email that gives you, where's your recording, so that you can have it and any additional information. And so we'll be looking for that in the next couple of days. You can forward that if you want to your administrator. If you need to miss something, that there will be a recording, and then you can catch up and keep going with the rest of it. Because we know it's summer, everybody's going to be in and out doing things, and we're trying to be, flexible with, and people need to be going out and doing things now. Like, it's like, let's actually go someplace and actually get outside.
I've been working constantly since January of 2020. So I'm completely unplugging for 2 weeks.
Oh my God, that sounds awesome.
Technology is coming with me.
That could be excellent. All right. Anybody else have any other questions? Or if there's something you want to ask, but you don't necessarily want to ask in front of everybody, just email me. My email is up on the screen, and I'd be happy to help you with it. And if you have any issues with when you get sent the recording, getting into the recording, just email support@almeeducation.com, or you can email me and I will send you to support, which is Debbie, and she will help you get into anything in terms of like where we house the recordings. They're in a system called Kajabi. It's kind of like Canvas. It's an online learning management system, and that's where we house those things, so you can get them, and the slides, because we'll make a PDF of the slides and put that in as well. All right, anything else? All right, well, if you have something, let me know. Thank you so much for attending. We appreciate it.